Children of Time is without a doubt one of the most terrifying sci-fi books I've ever read, and we need to talk about it. Now, if you are a subscriber to my channel, then you will have known that I have had a bit of a turbulent relationship with sci-fi, especially sci-fi books that become too concept heavy. Now, I have read around 250 SFF books in my life, with around 225 of those books being fantasy and only around 25 of those books being sci-fi. Yes, I clearly have read way more fantasy, and I could make a whole video about why that is the case. But the primary reason is often that I've found that sci-fi books become too concept driven and do not focus enough on the characters. That is the reason why I've always called Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir my favorite sci-fi book, since it both achieves being very concept driven, but it also has amazing characters. However, I have officially found a new all-time favorite science fiction book, and it comes from an author I have struggled getting into in the past. And the book I'm talking about is Children of Time, the first book in the Children of Time trilogy. Now, before picking up this book, I had read Shards of Earth and Dogs of War, both by Arthur Jakowski, and ultimately I ended up giving both of those books 3 stars, which made me wonder if Jakowski was an author that was really for me. However, I am so incredibly happy that I finally picked up his most known work, Children of Time. To state that this book is a masterpiece is not an understatement. This book is both incredibly terrifying and thought-provoking, and is paced perfectly. Literally, I have very few criticisms for this book. This book covers a lot of interesting topics, including human nature, narcissism, man's need for meaning in life, evolution, and our interaction with aliens. And this book also begs the question, are there areas within science that we should not explore? So let's talk about the premise of Children of Time and get into why this book is so brilliant. Now, I will get into the overall plot and I will mention some of the defining events in the first 100 pages, but overall this should be quite spoiler free and not ruin anything for you, but I will mention some overall plot details, so you have been warned. Now, Children of Time basically follows 3 primary plot lines that all slowly come together over the course of the book. Now, Children of Time is basically set in a far future where humans have discovered the ability of speeding up the evolutionary process. Now, while this has caused all kinds of ethical discussions, with many people thinking it's immoral for humans to, for example, give this drug to monkeys, some disagree. Now, let's discuss the 3 primary plot lines in this book. Now, the first plot line, we basically follow this crazy scientist as she's traveling through space to a planet that has been terraformed, so it's suitable for humans and other creatures to live on. And this planet already has some animals on it. Now, this crazy scientist is on a mission to give monkeys on this planet this drug that will increase their evolutionary process and thereby create the next so-called humans. Now, we know that this scientist is crazy from very early on, because she even herself says that she will become a god figure for this new race of humans. However, on this mission, various things go wrong, and instead of the monkeys going through this speeded up evolutionary process, the horrifying thing is the spiders go through it instead. And suddenly, we as readers get to see spiders go through a rapid process of evolution as they become more and more intelligent and start building up society. They start discussing morals, creating languages, and so on and so on. Now, I have to mention here that one of the most astounding elements of this whole book is that the spiders, who slowly evolve into this horrifying alien race, they truly feel alien. Now, one thing that has often bothered me with a lot of sci-fi books is that the aliens are often very human-like in their way of thinking and how they have created their society and so on and so on. However, that is not the case in Children of Time. The spiders truly feel non-human-like, and that makes total sense. Humans are primates, while spiders are arachnids. Now, if we could make spiders evolve faster, then obviously they wouldn't act or think like humans. they would truly feel alien, which I think that Jokoski did a wonderful job with in this book. It is both fascinating and absolutely horrifying to see spiders take on intelligence, and this whole book basically begs the question, how far does this evolutionary process go? As we progress through the story, the spiders become more and more intelligent, and I just had to keep on turning the pages just to see when Tchaikovsky would eventually stop this rapid evolutionary process. Now, what I also loved throughout this whole book is that this scientist that released this evolutionary drug on the planet, she basically believes that she is communicating with her monkeys throughout basically the whole book, not knowing that she's actually communicating with spiders. That is another way that Jokoski brilliantly is able to showcase how alien these spiders are. The communications between humans and the spiders is both weird and complex and very confusing. And again, I love the fact that Jokoski went to such great effort in making these spiders feel non-human-like. So that is basically the second plotline we follow, these spiders as they go through this rapid evolutionary process. We then have a third plotline as well. Now in this book, almost the whole human race is eradicated and there's only a very small remnant left. Now the Earth is not inhabitable anymore for various reasons, and the few humans that are now traveling through space on basically a mission to find a new place to live on. Now this whole book basically takes place over hundreds of years, since humans are able to go into this very deep sleep as they travel through space. Now what I found utterly compelling and fascinating with this third plotline is the analysis of human nature and our basic need of having a purpose in life. Now as these humans travel throughout space over a long period, we basically see how these humans start to try and take control and gain power, and we see the rise of almost a cult on board of this spaceship, and we see how desperate these humans become when they think they might be the last humans in the entire universe. It felt both absurd and realistic to see how Jokoski is able to showcase how humans react if they got stuck in a spaceship for a very long period of time. Now, if it isn't clear, then all these three plot lines are mostly separate over the course of the book, but slowly we see things falling into place that will basically lead to this big confrontation at the end of the story, and it's both incredibly riveting, exciting, and thought-provoking to see all these different ideas that are being analyzed in this book. Now, the obvious follow-up question is, why did I love this book, which is very concept driven and doesn't necessarily have incredibly fleshed out characters, but I have struggled with most other very concept driven books? Now I believe it comes down to a couple of things. The fact that we are analyzing the rapid evolutionary process of spiders allows the story to keep a very good pace. I mean, almost every 10 or 20 pages or so, we see the spiders become more intelligent, which constantly rewards you as a reader because you see this process constantly taking place. I sometimes feel that some science fiction books will spend a lot of time discussing the theory of Y, X, and Z, and so on, or science fiction books will focus a lot on how a particular technology works, and so on. Now, in this book, relatively little time is spent on explaining how things work at all, but rather, as readers, we are allowed to see these spiders evolve. It is a brilliant way to explore a concept, to show rather than tell. Now secondly, I think the overall premise is so unique and unlike anything I have ever read. Now let me make it clear, I hate spiders a lot, but I also love horror, and this book made me strangely fascinated. It was like reading a sci-fi horror book, which I don't believe I've ever experienced before. Now, it is probably clear that I loved this book. This book is a perfect 5 out of 5 for me. I mean, it's been almost 2 weeks since I finished this book, and I still think about this book on a frequent basis, which is not often that happens. I mean, especially for sci-fi books for me. But as always, this book might not be for everyone. I mean, firstly, if you are arachnophobic, then this will be a tough read for you. I mean, the spiders are horrifying and are taking over a planet. I mean, that premise is a nightmare for anyone that hates spiders. Secondly, this is a very concept-driven book, so I might see some readers like myself struggle with this book. However, as I've already talked about in detail, I absolutely loved this book. I am a bit worried whether I will enjoy the sequels now, because I've heard that book 2 is incredibly similar to Children of Time, and that is not going to be ideal for me, but I will definitely give it a read. But no matter what, you should definitely pick up Children of Time. It reads like a standalone and is honestly now in my top 2 favorite sci-fi books of all time. I hope you enjoyed this in-depth review. Let me know if you like this type of videos, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. Now, if you want to support what I do here, then I do have a Patreon. Now, a reason why I created a Patreon was to find a new way to reinvest to the channel, because basically since I created my Patreon, I spent around 100% of my earnings to hire an editor to do a couple of videos for me a month. Now, since creating my Patreon, an editor has done more than 20 videos for me on my channel, so it makes a huge difference. Now, if you join my Patreon, you will also get some benefits. For example, you'll get a name in my videos like these guys. You'll also be able to join the exclusive Viking book club where every month we read one book together, and you might be the one to put the book forward. This month we're reading this book, and next month we're reading this book. You also get to vote on my next read, get access to exclusive videos like a wrap-up or even book reviews, and so much more. But this is totally voluntary, but all support is much appreciated.